Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'll be sharing with you how to cut an alter neck corset. So if this is something you like, please hit on the subscribe button. So first, here is my pattern paper, and I've gone ahead to mark my basic measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline. So the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead and mark my shoulder divided by 2, and I'll be coming down by 1 inch. From that point, I'll go ahead and connect to draw my shoulder slant. So I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches to serve as a guide, and I'm just going to go ahead to connect this. So this is what I have at this point. The next step is to mark your chest line or your armhole, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5. I'll measure what I have at the shoulder, make sure that is what I have at the chest line, and I'll go ahead to connect and draw a straight line. So I'll place my ruler, and I'm going to be drawing out a line at this point, which will serve as my chest line. So to draw my armhole curve, I'm going to place my tape, fold it into 2, and I will mark. Now from that point, I'll go out by ½ inch. And on the chest line point, I'm going to be marking my bust circumference divided by 4. My bust is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.3 approximately. So I'll connect from my bust circumference to the armhole and to the upper part of my shoulder. So this is what I have at this point. So I'll go ahead and I will mark or outline the shoulder point and the neckline of my pattern. So next, I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is your bust band divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. I'll go ahead to mark it at the chest line, at the bust line, at the under bust line, and also at the waistline. After that, I'll place my ruler, and I'm going to connect and draw out a straight line, and I'll be marking my dart intake of 1 inch at both sides. So if you're busty or you're on the bigger size, you'll be using 1.5 inches. Now I'll connect from my bust down to my under bust, and I will repeat this at the other side of my pattern this way. Go ahead to use my marker to mark it out. So after I'm done marking it out, the next step is to decide where you want the neckline of your corset to start. So I'll be using 1.5 inches from my chest line, and I'll draw a fence line. So from the neckline, I'll come down by 1 inch, and I'll be connecting this down to my chest line this way. After I'm done marking, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline this. So I'll go ahead to extend my nipple to nipple point at that 1.5 inches I came up with, and I'll connect. So I'll be marking my dart intake of 1 inch at both sides of my pattern. So after that, I'll just go ahead to connect, and I will also connect at the other side. So I will remeasure what I have here. Notice that it is more than 1 inch, and I will reconnect back my pattern. So I'll be cleaning that off later, and I'll go ahead to mark on this side and place my curve through, and I will connect. So I'll be coming down by my chest line. I'll come in by ½ inch this way, and I will connect it down to my under bust. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to use my marker to outline it to make it more visible. So after that, I will draw out my chest line this way, and I will connect that point to the dart intake I have on top, and I will be drawing out that part straight, and I'll connect it to the armhole. So from here, I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'll add ½ inch. Another way to do this is to divide what you have between your armhole and your bust circumference. So this is what I have at this point, and I'll use my marker to mark it out. So after I'm done marking out my pattern, this is what I have on this point. Next is to insert my body measurements. So I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 at the bust line. So I'll measure the dart intake I have there, and I will replace it, add my sewing allowance, extend my chest line, and I'll mark what I have at the bust. So I'll be marking my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, and add my sewing allowance. So you can use your sewing allowance of your choice. So I'll just go ahead to connect from the bust down to the under bust and to the waist, and I will outline my pattern, and after this I'll just go ahead to cut this out. So I'll go ahead to label my cup as cup A and cup B, label this center and side, and I'll go ahead to cut out my pattern. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and if you have any question, please leave it at the comment section. So after I'm done cutting out the front pattern of this corset, this is what I have, and we'll move over to the back pattern. And for the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out my basic measurement just like we did for the front. So for the back, I used 3 by 2.5 inches for the neckline. So next I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So if you notice, I did not add my under bust here, but you can go ahead to do that. So I'll mark 1/2 inch at both sides and I will extend it all the way up. So I'll also be marking my under bust. I did this for people that don't mark their under bust at the back. So I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. So before marking my waist circumference, I'll place my tape and I'll mark my shoulder to under bust, because there's no bust at the back, so you can also leave this. It doesn't really affect your pattern. So I'll go ahead to mark the under bust circumference divided by 4 and I'll measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. I'll mark the waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. So from here I'll connect from my under bust to my bust, and then I'll connect down to the waistline. So after this, I'm just going to work on the upper part of my pattern. So before that, I'll go ahead to outline the rest of my pattern, and for the neckline, I'm just going to come down by 1 inch just like we did for the front, and I'm going to place my curved drew and I'm going to connect it back to the armhole this way. So this is what I have at this point. So this is if you want to use an halter neck at the back, but some halter neck at the back you can just leave the yoke and start from the chest line. That is your back pattern. It will be like a backless halter neck. So after that, I will go ahead and mark 2 inches at the front part. This is to create the lacing bar area, and I'm going to connect it this way. So after that, I'm just going to make a mark to indicate that I have a lacing bar at that point. And I'll also go ahead to outline the rest of my pattern. So just like I said earlier, if you don't want to attach a yoke to your pattern, all you have to do is extend the neckline up, and for the back pattern, you're going to connect it to the chest line at the front. So in case you're working for the upper part, you're also going to need your front measurement and back measurement to cut out the piece on the halter. So for your yoke part, you can just go ahead to connect it to the lacing bar area this way, or you can just connect it to your nipple to nipple point. That is to connect from this part that you have your dart to the neckline. So at the back, you're just going to add a loop, and you're also going to measure the neckline. This is very important so that you know what to use to cut out the upper part of your neckline. So after this, I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern. So at the upper part of this pattern, just like we have at the thumbnail, you'll be measuring what you have there and you'll be cutting out a neck piece at that point. So I'm just going to go ahead to cut out the rest of my pattern. At the yoke, you notice that I took out a little. This is just to make sure that the yoke doesn't have any excess there when you're sewing. So you can just go ahead to cut out your pattern into 2, or you can just go ahead to blend your darts in. So if you have any question, please don't forget to leave it at the comment section. So next, I will go ahead and I will bring my front pattern. So you have to measure what you have on the front piece and also measure what you have at the back piece to cut out what you're going to be attaching to the neckline. And after measuring that, you're going to be adding 1/2 inch to it for sewing allowance. and you're going to use any desired length of your choice. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. Please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button and join us in our next video.